Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we're really excited today to have Melody Carlson back, author Melody Carlson, back on the podcast for the third time. And Melody, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah. So I'm not sure when was the last time we had you. I think it was 2021. It's been a couple years. So
Absolutely. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Are you in a spot of crazy weather, or is it pretty nice there where you're at?
Well, we've got a little snow on the ground and there's more coming. And I just
Mm.
keep wanting it to end.
Yeah, I know. We have had one of the snowiest seasons in my memory in Utah for years. We've had tons of snow.
It's crazy. In California, I can't believe
Yeah,
we're
Disneyland. They had snow at Disneyland for the first
figure
time ever in the whole history of the park.
that is so weird.
Yeah, craziness. Yeah, I was just in LA for an event in February, and there was flash floods and it was madness.
Mm.
So but anyway, it's fun. You have a new book, second time around, and you have written over 250 books, which is just like amazing.
That's a lot of books.
It's a lot of books. Like, how do you do it? How do you keep coming up with ideas?
Well, my pat answer is that there are as many ideas as there are people in the world because like I feel like I could sit down with anybody and hear a story and somehow make a novel out of it. I don't know. Maybe
Hmm.
somebody should challenge me on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, one of those like sharing activities where one person starts out the beginning of the story and then goes. You just
Yeah,
need like a prompt like that, and you could be good. You'd go
I just go spinning
book.
them off. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you usually writing more than one book at the same time?
No, not really.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll be in the midst of one and edits will come in for another one and I'll have to take a break to edit, but
Mm-hmm.
no. I mean, I
Yeah.
might have an idea percolating, but I won't usually sit down and really work on it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, how do you keep everything straight in your stories?
I don't know. And I'm not doing as many as I was doing in the early days. I've slowed down a lot, which I'm enjoying being a little.
Yeah. Wow. When do you write better, in the morning or afternoon?
Oh, it's kind of about mid morning to mid afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably be the same. Probably be the same because then things get so busy in the afternoon. But my like brain isn't ready in the morning.
No, I know people who get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I just can't can't wrap my
Yeah,
head around.
same. So we enjoyed the Happy Camper movie on
Good.
this podcast. We did a whole deep dive on it, and we saw your name. We're like, oh, it's Melody. I wrote that. I wrote the book that it's based on, and so I was curious about it. How did you get the idea for that book?
Well, I thought I was going to take a little break in writing. I can't even remember exactly what made me think I was going to, but I saw this camper on the side of the road, literally this old '63 Oasis camper, and I bought it and I wanted to restore it completely myself. My husband and we've restored houses and built and all that stuff, and so he's really good at that kind of thing. But I was like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm doing this one myself. So I did it, and while I was working on it, I thought, this is a book. This is a book, and then by the time I got done, I was so exhausted that I just wanted to sit down and write a book.
Yeah, that's no easy process doing those kind of renovations.
No, and but it was, actually was going to write a more serious story. I wanted to call it The Happy Camper, but I had found this old, probably Vietnam era army jacket, and the name on it was Carlson. That's my last name, and it was just like, woo, this would make a really kind of a spooky, sad, weird story. And
Uh-huh.
but then they wanted me to make it a little more cheerful and happy. So I kind of took out some of the woo-woo stuff.
Mm. I guess if they're gonna want to call it the Happy Camper, it kind of makes
Yeah, yeah. I just was going to let her be a little more tragic before she
Mm,
became happy.
yeah.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Was some darker elements conflict in the movie with her and her mother.
Right.
Like,
yes.
and I mean, I don't know if what's in the book versus the movie, but that whole sort of plot of her being bitter and not wanting to call her mother, calling her by her first name because she didn't feel like she earned the title of mother.
Right. Right. And that needed some healing work on it.
Yeah.
They kind of both got forced into it because they both landed at the same place at the same time,
Yeah.
which turned out for the best.
Yeah. Well, and they're both trying to kind of make the grandfather character happy. And then also she gets the encouragement from I forget his name, the guy.
Jordan.
Jordan. They, to that, since I think he'd lost his mom. Trying to remember.
I can't remember that one.
Yeah. But anyway, he was like, if I had a chance to make it up with her, I would definitely take it. So he encourages her.
Yeah. Right.
And then in the movie, at least, there's a really great kiss scene in the car when they're supposed to be going on this dance date, and she's like, I never met anybody who sees people like the way you see people, which I thought was very sweet.
Yeah. I think in the book it was sitting in the back of his pickup on the 4th of July, but
okay. Yeah.
I can't remember for sure.
Well, you've written 250.
Yeah.
Understandable. Yeah. And I mean, did you get a chance to see the movie version?
Yes. First time I saw it was with a lot of friends, and I
good.
wasn't really, well, actually the first time I saw it was in the rough cuts, and I looked on my phone, and it, it's kind of hard. And then the next time with friends. So then finally I just watched it completely by myself because I just, I did the adaptation on that. Brian Bird helped me a lot, with just making it more. Yeah. So that was the first one I've adapted that I've
So you did the script then. I forgot that.
Yeah. Yes.
Is that challenging to adapt your own work?
Well, with my first movie, I saw the adaptation of it, which I didn't do, and I kind of studied it, and I had adapted some of my other books before, and I had done one original screenplay, so I was familiar with it, and it motivated me to just go ahead and do it myself because I felt like I get it. I mean, yeah, there's things you have to think about because these are low budget movies, right? So you just can't do everything and go everywhere, and then the weather and COVID, we kept trying to go into production, and that changes everything. And finally it was like winter, but it was March, but it was winter time. It's like almost exactly a year ago.
Well, didn't they filmed it in that first movie? Didn't they All Summer Long, I think it was, didn't they gender swap it? Like have the characters reversed? Okay. Yeah.
And I was okay with that, but I don't know. I don't think I would have done that myself, but yeah.
But it worked. It would work. Okay. It worked. Yeah. Well, when you have Chris McNally in your movie, I think, or was that Brendan Elliott?
It was Brendan Elliott.
It was Autumn Reeser, right?
And Autumn Reeser.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. And so it was fun too to have the movie The Happy Camper starring married couple in real life. That I think added a layer. to
They're so
things.
sweet
So
too.
cute. Yeah.
It's funny. She's a foot shorter than he is, which that's the same as my husband and me.
Oh,
But
really?
a lot of times they had to put her up on a box so that they could shoot the scenes without it looking too, odd.
Right. Get her on
Yeah.
the milk crate.
Yep.
They were really, really cute. I got to first see them in the show The Middle, and they were
Right.
so good in that. So I was very excited when I saw that they were going to be on a up TV
Yep.
movie or TV movie. So I hope they keep using them because I liked them a lot. And I also thought the wrong guy in it was pretty funny. It was
Yeah.
pretty enjoyable, over the
Yes.
top.
And the bad girl, not she wasn't really a bad girl, but she
Yeah.
was hilarious. I thought she really pulled that off.
I would bet those kind of characters are pretty fun to write. The bad
Yeah.
men of business, kind of
It- it's fun.
yeah, and he's like shredding everything. I'm thinking this should be a clue to this girl.
Yeah, I know, really. What's going on?
Step away.
Hey, this is Jen Johans, host of the podcast Watch with Jen, which delivers a steady stream of great movie recommendations, thoughtful career deep dives, and first-rate conversations with film critics, authors, actors, journalists, filmmakers, and more. You can find Watch with Jen wherever you get your podcasts or hear us first at our Patreon at patreon.com/filmintuition.
Good. So you have the new book Second Time Around coming. And would you say that there it is. Would you say this is almost more women's fiction than rom-com?
I always have a really hard time defining that.
Mhm.
There's definitely a romance going on, and speaking of bad characters, there's a couple of them, and not really. I mean, I hate saying bad characters, but ones that
Mhm.
kind of rock the boat.
Antagonists. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not. I've never done formula romance, even though I've like won awards and things like that.
Mhm.
I didn't really understand that until somebody told me and explained to me what that was. But I kind of feel like it's changed too over the years, but I don't know for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but there's definitely a romance in here, but it's not the kind of thing where they meet in the first few pages, which
Yeah.
is expected.
It's more about her and her journey.
It is, and she's an older woman, and
Mhm.
as I'm getting older, I'm kind of enjoying writing older characters, and I feel like probably my readers are getting older too.
Mhm.
It's a different kind of romance, and to
Mhm.
me, it has more layers to it, and people, and it's called second a second time around.
Mhm.
So hint, hint, they both have had, well, she had a really kind of a crummy marriage,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
he had a better one.
I was going to ask you, how do you decide, okay, this time I'm writing about an older character, this time, or in Happy Camper, I'm writing about a younger couple. This time I'm going to write about a divorcee. This time I'm going to write about a widow, maybe one time. Like, how do you kind of decide where you're going in a story?
I'm not a real plotter, but the character usually comes to me first, and usually, of a certain age. And then I just sort of kind of explore and try to figure out, what's her story.
Mhm.
And so I kind of learn as I go. The one I just did, you know, it's kind of a rom-com too, but it actually has two younger characters. So that was kind of a challenge because I was doing two almost simultaneously that were actually trading places.
Mhm.
And and it was interesting doing that because I realized how much I do explore, like I don't really know. And at one point I just had to pause because I thought, I didn't really know this other character. She was kind of secondary, but they were both primary characters. And I
Mhm.
thought I have to take a moment and get to find out
Yeah.
what.
Do you like character map kind of out your characters? Like get an idea, okay, this is where.
Not like I know some people do. I've
Mhm.
tried to do that in the past. One time I did a series of 4 books with 4 main characters, and a friend, you probably know who she is, Robin Jones Gunn,
Mhm.
had told me about using a notebook and getting pictures out of magazines and doing all this stuff. So I did all this. I made this great big notebook with all this stuff, and then once I started writing, I never looked at the notebook again.
Well, I would think though it would kind of help just sort of the brainstorming and like get you in that space kind of a thing. Like if I am sometimes if I'm reviewing a film, I'll take notes, well, especially if it's for the podcast. But I think even if I don't actually even look at those notes, it helps me to kind of be in that space, kind of analyzing it in that way. I don't know, it helps
Mhm.
my brain. So it might be helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody has their unique processes. And I don't know if you remember, we met Robin Jones Gunn because of you. Do you remember
Oh,
that? Yeah, you were
yeah.
going to be on
I
the
do
podcast,
now.
but then you were like evacuated or something, and so you called Robin, and we hadn't met, so we didn't know what you look like, you know.
Oh,
And anyway, and so
I do remember that.
yeah, so she comes on the podcast. We thought she was you because we didn't know what you looked like because it was the
Mhm.
first time, and we were just like, oh, okay.
I do remember, and I remember hearing Robin's story too, and she told me how
That's
it went.
really funny.
Oh
That
my
was
goodness.
definitely one of the most memorable interviews we ever done. We're like, okay, pivoting now.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we
So,
were on a fire evacuation. Forced fire.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something like that. And I was like, you could have just said, oh, we can't make it because we're getting evacuated. But it was
Well,
very
I
sweet of you.
have your connections and I couldn't get a hold of the publisher, and this was probably before we could do things so easily on our phones, you know.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
it was funny though.
Yeah, it was early. It was early on. Well, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about Second Time Around, what it's about?
Well, Mallory Farrell is our main character, and she's got 3 grown children, and her youngest one has just gotten married, and she's feeling kind of like an empty nester. Well, she is an empty nester,
Mm-hmm.
and she's been a she had a kind of an unfortunate marriage, got the good kids out of it, but he wasn't, the man she thought he was, and
Yeah,
they
kind of a
they
jerk.
had kind of a jerk. They'd restored this old Victorian house together, or well, partly they started it, and he just kind of bailed on her with the 3 kids and the big old house, and just left. And so she restored it, and in the process, kind of realized she had good designer skills and became a designer and successful, and had big office in her basement and all that. And then she inherits this funky old tourist shop on the coast, and it was her grandma's shop, and she used to spend summers there because her mom died when she was young, and her grandma really helped take care of her holidays and whatnot when her
Mhm.
dad was working. Her dad was a workaholic, and she's a workaholic too.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway, she's going to sell the shop and go back home, and then she meets this old kind of, crush from teenage years, and of course he's widowed now, and he's still kind of wonderful, but he wants to buy the whole shamil and knock everything down and build this mall. And she just thinks that's a terrible idea because it's just this funky old, beach town. And so anyway, she decides that she's going to restore it herself and make a shop there. And she calls the shop Romancing the Home, which she feels like every home, it doesn't matter whether, there's a romance in your life, your home should welcome you with loving arms. And so that's kind of her theory. And so she creates this gorgeous shop, and she gets discovered to do it's kind of like an HGTV show. And then things kind of go all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you come up with Mallory and Grayson as your lead characters?
Well, I had worked in just for not even a year in design because I thought that I wanted to do that. And I worked with one of the best designers in our area, maybe even in the state. And so I'd had that experience, and I think I probably even drew from the old Victorian house and stuff like that because she did that, and she had her office like that too, so there was a little bit of that. And then I don't know, my husband's been a contractor and carpenter, so he's probably got a lot of the same skills. So in a way, I probably drew more out of real life. And actually, when I was writing the book, we were building a house too. So
Oh, nice.
I was the contractor for our house. My husband was doing a lot of the work, but I was doing all the organizing part of the work, and then of course I'm the designer too. So it was very real to life. I was writing it in this make do office that
Mhm.
was as ugly as can be because we had sold our other home and we were living in an apartment above our garage. And anyway, so some of it, was kind of like right out of real life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you live by the shore, right? By the
Well,
ocean.
we had a cabin at the beach for 8 years, and we
Okay.
completely restored it, and it was lovely. But
Mm,
we just kind of got over the driving back. It was 3 hour drive back
mm-hmm.
and forth, and we felt like we were disconnected to both places because we'd
Mm,
miss something there, and then we'd miss something here, and finally
mm-hmm.
let's just lock in here because we are in a really sweet little mountain town, and
Mm,
there's a lot to love about both of the places, but we've realized we need to make a choice.
mm-hmm. So did you base Portside on any of those places?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
it's kind of a cross between maybe it's like the town that we lived in, only it would have been like 20 years earlier when it was kind of a
Okay.
podunk town, and then it kind of came into its own. It's really a sweet little town. It's called Florence, Oregon. But
Okay.
then there's some other ones that are nearby that are more like it, where they just haven't really been quite discovered yet and need a little love and attention. And so yeah, it was kind of a cross between some of
Mhm.
them.
So this movie is basically second chance romance as far as the romantic tropes. Would you say that out of all the tropes, like enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, like which one is the hardest, and where does like second chance romance rank as far as the difficulty to write?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if it would really be friends to lovers, because that's my favorite, is friends to lovers, because that's kind of how my husband and I
Oh
were.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a really good thing, especially because I've written a lot for young people.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much lately, but I always liked doing that for younger readers, because I thought you need to understand that friendship lasts a lot longer sometimes than just the sweep you off your feet, Prince Charming, rescue me kind of
Mm-hmm.
romance might last. But
Yeah.
I guess I'd call their relationship was probably more friends to lovers.
Yeah.
Although there was that crush to start with, so I don't know, what do you call that?
Like second chance romance, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's always
yeah.
fun. And there's that like awkwardness because you don't want to mess up the friendship.
And yeah, exactly. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of risky. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's fun.
yeah,
Well, and Grayson is a fun character because he's like very open, very honest,
yeah,
with and she's definitely more like closed off because of her experience with her ex.
yeah.
Because
And
she's not that trusting.
I know, and I like that he had a good relationship, because it's like he brings that to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
really liked his daughter too. I thought she was really
Yeah, she
sweet.
was good. She was good. What would you say makes this story unique? Why would you say people check this one out?
Well, if you like interior design or that sort of thing, you're gonna like it. I've had
Mm-hmm.
several people that have read it, and they really get into that part of it. If you like HGTV
Mm.
and Magnolia and things like that, you're gonna like it. But I just think, also the older characters to me are interesting, because they do have more layers of experience, and and then there's a couple of characters in there, as you find out later on in the book, which I won't go into, that I think made it kind of fun. I'm probably going to go ahead and adapt this one into a screenplay
Ah.
too.
Yeah, do you get guidance from your publishers and stuff like that saying like make write a story about an older group or write this kind of thing, or do they just let you do your own thing?
Pretty much let me do my own thing. I mean, I used in the old days, I used to just like send a one sentence thing, and then we'd contract a book. Now they want a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
I just sent a new one into them, and we'll see if they like it. But it's with older characters. Well, it's got older and younger characters. There's kind of two stories going on at the same time. But I think they're so used to me that, I probably get a little more leeway than some people.
I think you could make a fun movie out of this for like Hallmark movies and mysteries. They had one last year called Mid-Love Crisis. That was really good with Terry Hatcher.
Oh, I'll have to look for that.
Yeah, it was really good. James Tupper.
Yeah.
That
just fun.
She's turning 50.
And looks fabulous, of course.
Yeah, of course. Well, you have to have some escapism, right?
Right. I know. Who wants to watch somebody who's 50 and they look like they're 60?
Do they kind of say we could really use a Christmas book, like as far as themes, or that's up to you?
I do a Christmas book every year.
Okay.
Oh, you mean like suggest? Well, you know what?
Like, we need it in our line, in our lineup.
This year's Christmas book that, this was, of course, a couple years back when they told me, and it's already written and all that. It's already adapted, and I've already sold it as a novel.
Oh my gosh.
But it's called A Royal Christmas, and they kind of insisted on it, and I was kind of dragging my feet, like, no, but I did it, and it was kind of fun. And actually, we just got the new cover, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so that's coming out this year, and the movie at the same time.
We'll see. Interestingly enough, the producer that contracted it they're going to produce it in South Africa. Which is really interesting because Christmas in South Africa is warm climate. The book that I wrote originally, the book was set kind of in a European cold climate country, and of course it was all white, and then South Africa. So when I wrote this, and I did the script, I adapted it, and so it was quite different.
Well, I mean, this year we had My Southern Family Christmas, I think it was called, and it was in Louisiana, no snow at all. And then there was also one on Lifetime called New Orleans Noel, I think it was called.
Oh, I think I heard about that.
Yeah, with Keisha Knight Pulliam. No snow in there either, or only a tiny bit if they did. It's like, what is happening?
I know. How does that go over? Does it work?
I actually did end up enjoying both of them, but it's like all bets are off now. You don't even have to have snow in your Christmas movie.
Well, the South African won't, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and there was one called Christmas in the Wild on Netflix a couple of years ago. And that one was pretty good, except for it had almost like no Christmas at all. It's like they just kind of forgot about Christmas.
Well, there's so many Christmas movies now. Maybe people get all snowed and hot chocolated out, and then they like to go down south. I don't know.
What kind of madness do you speak? Wow. We'll look forward to seeing that. That will be a lot of fun. And so, yeah, well, we're looking forward to when can people get the book second time around?
When did you say?
Yeah, when does it come out?
Boy, you can order them now, and I think they actually release on the 7th. So it's like next week.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming and talking with us. We always really appreciate getting to catch up and keep us posted on all those upcoming projects. And we'll have the link people check out second time around in the description. I enjoyed it. I think especially if you're in the mood for sort of more women's fiction, of getting into into Mallory's space and experiencing her story, then I think you'll enjoy it. And then of course the Happy Camper, and we'll put a link down to our recap of that movie because we enjoyed that. So thanks so much for coming on, and wish you best of luck with the new book.
Thanks, Rachel.
Hey, bye everyone. Find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmark's Pod and Hallmark's Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our patron group, which is really fun. We've got an awesome patron watch along coming up in April. You're all going to want to be part of it. We're going to have Rhiannon and Fish on for our
Ooh.
April guest, and we'll have more details coming out. We're going to be watching her movie, The Christmas Retreat. So you definitely want to sign up for the Patreon. It's a great resource to get in touch with and to have fun with these stars and find out more about what goes into making these movies. So please take a look at that. We would really appreciate it. And we have the merch store, which has tons of fun designs. So please take a look. And thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.